Images of glory in my mind, that enlistment. Overhead a flapping red, white, and blue, filling the distance. A grand divide between myself and conscientious convictions or belief systems that stop people from killing over religion. I was young, and I was out of options in my mind. It was supposed to be fun, my obligations ill-defined. I'd be the one to take charge with a gun back in my mind. Without college or riches, no dreams are realized. Well, I never have the ladder of the Marines to get me the first. Ain't nothing better than dress blues are the ones spitting this verse. You see the world paying to the GI Bill, fat in the purse. My recruiter made it sound simple, a play get well rehearsed. Forever cursed to the ones who get young innocent signatures under the guise of from God and country their honor diminishes. Greed built a standing army when against the founders' wishes. Now free democracy conducts war games and peacekeeping missions. Ironic hypocrisy.
Falling tears, raindrops from your eyes. Falling rain, let it fall.
I scored high in my entrance exams on ASVAB and chose the 0341 with guaranteed Hawaii track. Graduated basic, now MOS school's where I'm at. A mortar man with a 35-pound gun on my back. Plus my rifle 8 pounds, 65-pound pack. I'm 18, weigh a $195 and feel jack. 108 pounds on my back, a boot marine and Cadillacs. A short 20-mile hump, 4 quarts in my flat. After 7 miles, swearing in my right foot crack. I'm an E1, tell my sergeant I think it's snap. He's an E5, shouts profit, don't feed me crap. You got 2 feet, compensate and don't fall back. After 4 more miles, my left foot joins in the act. Only 9 more to go, I walked through all, that's a fact. 1 certificate for intestinal fortitude, not having shat. And 3 months healing, lost Hawaii to Guantanamo, rap.
Sergeant de Victoire, who I met in 6th grade. Dress greens, patent leather, and a high top fade. My mind was made up, I couldn't wait to grow up so I could sign up, man up, and stop the corrupt. A champion for God and country. Just wait till they get a load of me, an unstoppable PFC. Private first class, polished brass. I wanted to kill all the black pajamas that were hiding in the grass. But with no war in sight, my plight to fight never took flight. So I trained during the day and got drunk at night. Set my sights on all types of glory. Fast forward to Afghanistan, totally different story. IEDs, enemies, no front line to see. 80 pounds of gear in the desert, I could hardly breathe. Bloodstained fatigues, very many colleagues sent home to the VA to live with PTSD. Every day recruiters go to inner cities and ask for
falling tears, raindrops from your eyes. Falling rain, let it fall.
I never let my children volunteer for the military to make the same mistakes as I did these days could be deadly. If they're drafted with dodging, my go back, stay ready. I support Manning and Snowden. You know where this country's heading. Global tyrant, hegemonic, bully police force, demonic practice, virgin sacrifice, bloodlust. Oil wars valuing corporations over people. This is sick worship by objects and pure evil. Material desires get more attention than spiritual. Benefits are based on profits, complaints aren't given view. Arms manufacture, supply both sides of conflicts. Do you have a problem with any of these statements or doubt their truth? I'm a father and a veteran, and I stand for peace. Julian Assange against our commanders-in-chief. But it's hard to be better when daily demands compete. I'm not ignoring the slaughter, I'm just trying to eat like you.
Falling tears, raindrops from your eyes. Falling rain, let it fall.
Peace and plenty, peace and plenty. Thanks for joining us this March 17th, 2021 episode of StandDown Live. My My colleague Mike James and I are here. Natasha's going to join us soon. Solidarity.
Word. Happy to be here. Let's do it.
We recognize that we are here on occupied land. This is Turtle Island. All of this entire nation is occupied. This entire nation is stolen land. I come to you from the Gulf of Mexico, in Biloxi and Choctaw territory, and this is now Mobile, the city of Mobile, and today we're going to talk about the Winter Soldier, and we are here because we are disillusioned veterans. We are veterans who chose to go in and give our lives for what we thought was the loftiest service in our country, and we became disillusioned in and spoke out while we were in or once we got out. And so we are here today standing in solidarity with the righteous uprising for Black lives and Indigenous lives, LGBTQ lives in this country and around the world, and asking for active duty military and police to stand in solidarity and stand down if they are given orders to break up rightful, justful First Amendment organ rights, protests and marches and rallies and rebellions of any sort, when they barely stepped in for what we saw happen in January 6th. And so we're here talking about a subject that's been going on for 40 years. And there's a lot to unpack. So we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about this phenomenon of the Winter Soldier, what the Winter Soldier is for people who may not know. It's not an Avengers character, and how these conversations keep happening, and how perhaps they're not as how to grow the conversations, because why do we keep having the same conversations? It's a lot. Perhaps it's, I won't give you what I think now. So let's talk about these. Let's talk about this stuff.
Word. Yeah. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here today. It's, watching the Winter Soldier conference that was held just last week. We should share the link here in the comments so that everybody can go and watch that. It's a 2-hour presentation with a big variety of speakers from different generations, different wars, different military branches, and even a few domestic United States policemen who have turned against the workings of empire here within our borders, within the U.S. borders. But it was a really great presentation, and it reminded me, I was really encouraged by it, because the political lines were correct across the board. Like, people were coming with hot fire. I highly recommend everybody go and watch it, because there was no weakness. Like, everyone was very resolute. Everyone is very well credited, have a long personal history and academic understanding of imperialism, the American military and the American empire. I was really encouraged by it. It was great to see. I think VFP, and other anti-war organizations across the country are really kind of getting their stuff together, as it were. I think people are becoming more educated, and the contradictions of empire are becoming untenable, and I think that's becoming really obvious. But a little bit about Winter Soldier and the phrase. I saw Garrett put a little comment there. So Winter Soldier comes from kind of like a poem or an essay by Thomas Paine, where he writes about the Revolutionary War, and he talks about how the Americans who were fighting against the British, I guess they were saying that there were summer soldiers who were kind of abandoning the cause, and that it was Thomas Paine and the revolutionaries' mission to dig in and to become the Winter Soldiers and to stick with the cause. Now, I personally, I think there's a little bit of trouble with that political line. I think, the Revolutionary War wasn't necessarily quite so revolutionary. I think a lot of what the American Revolution about was preserving land rights for Americans, for white males specifically, and preserving slavery. Because at the time, slavery was going out of fashion. It was becoming unprofitable, less profitable because of developments in technology. And the British were recognizing that and starting to phase out the transatlantic slave trade. But American patriots were American patriots, or super patriots, as like Michael Parenti would define them. Were digging in, and they were trying to preserve. So that's a conversation in and of itself that definitely the anti-imperialist left, anti-war veterans need to have. I think we need to have that conversation and understand that better. But that aside, Winter Soldier can be appropriate in that us being anti-war and anti-imperialist, we have to dig in because everything is at stake. The existence of the species is at stake in the face of climate change, nuclear war, and mass imperialist genocides that are happening here at home against Native Americans and around the world in a variety of places.
I think you also gotta talk to people in terms that they understand, right? So
Yes.
we're not trying to change the vocabulary by using Winter Soldier. You're still talking to people in terms of fighting, in terms, like you said, of digging in.
Yeah.
You get into the mindset of, you're in for the long haul. Like you said earlier, I think you said before we got on, you said it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? So
Yeah.
it gets you into that. It gets you like, it's like the daily motivation, the daily vitamin. And so
Yeah.
you don't have to change the language to get to the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it has a modern historical precedence with, in 1972, there was a documentary that was put out that was essentially a series of testimonials on the horrific violence and the genocidal project that was the Vietnam War, or the American War on Vietnam is more appropriate. That historical precedence is important. That documentary, honestly, I haven't seen it, and I need to. If anybody has a link out there, please share it in the comments because I need to see that documentary.
I've seen pieces of it. I've seen like interviews that happened in the hallway, and I've seen like moments of panels. I haven't ever seen the whole documentary, but I know that people that we know have access to it. Somebody will most likely share it.
Your mic is low.
My mic is
in the comments. I guess maybe mine's really loud. Maybe yours isn't low, but mine's loud. You seem to have frozen. But I'll just keep faith in that we're still live and that we're still going, and I'll continue until Megacyph, his connection gets restored. Like I said, the Winter Soldier conference was fantastic. I feel like I should recognize the different. Oh, there you go. You're back now. We got you. You froze for a second.
Let me go grab headphones real quick.
Okay. All right. So real quick, I'll just recognize the participants that were in the Winter Soldier conference. I'll just read their names here so that people can be aware of them and look them up if you want to. David Courtwright, Susan Schnall, Joe Ergo, Scott Camel, Barbara Koppel, Adrian Kinn, Hart Vidges, David Ziegler, and Margaret Stevens are the names I have here. I hope I got them all. But big shout out to all of our participants. We got no volume from you, Miles. Oh, you're silenced. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, I was just doing a mic check.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So yeah, big shout out to all those people. I was really impressed by everyone's conference. I think one of the things that was really interesting that, the anti-war community, anti-war veteran community hasn't been exposed to much are there were two former policemen who have come out and spoken against the American war on its own people here in the United States. And I thought that was a great contribution. I really appreciated their contributions.
I did as well. I like the intersectionality of that. Am I still low? Can y'all hear me? Is that good?
I think you sound pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like the intersectionality. I like how that was. I like how former police officers were brought in. They were. I think they also used to. They were in the military as well.
Yeah.
Prior to being officers. And then I like the intergenerational aspect. There were folks on this panel who were on the 2008 panel, and there were folks in this or webinar, and there were folks here who are in 1972. Is it 1972? The original, who are
Yes. Yes.
who I'm almost positive were involved, because like I don't know if I mean I was really impressed by a few of our members. You know, I don't want to like. I feel like if I call somebody out, I got to call out everybody. But
Yeah.
I
David
really
Ziegler.
I really loved Susan's presentation. It was it was beautifully crafted. It was really
Yeah.
passionate. It resonated with me for a long time.
Yeah, the name that was associated with the original, he's the director of photography, I suppose, or the filmmaker, David Ziegler.
David Ziegler, yeah.
Yeah, he was the person who made Winter Soldier, and he was also in this most recent conference.
Yep.
Yeah, so big shout out to David. He's the man. I definitely need to become more familiar with his work.
Filmmaker to filmmaker, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
filmmaker. That's why I got this fancy webcam. So that's just one of the perks of, going into credit card debt, buying cameras.
That's the American way, isn't it?
That's right. Bye.
I mean,
That's what that stimmy is all about.
If you stop going into debt, maybe the wars can stop happening, and then these panels. But then what would we talk about? Let's not get too silly. These panels have been. This has been going on for 40 years. This has been happening. War resistance, open like longer than 40 years, but people who have come home from war speaking against the military industrial complex to the American public has been happening on what we think is a large scale for 40 plus years. And I think the fight, there's, you have people saying we used to do it like this, and we used to get out on the streets and get active, and we need to do more of this and we need to do more of that. I see a lot of people out in the streets. I see some huge marches. Some of the largest marches of world history have happened like in the past 10 years, right, in resistance to war.
Yeah,
and
we had a protest here in Cincinnati today, which unfortunately I wasn't able to make, about social, about housing justice. So I mean, people are mobilizing. Yes. Without a doubt, they're consistently mobilizing.
We're at a time right now. I think we're at a time right now where also not only are people mobilizing, but people are seeing the intersections. That's why this panel, I think that Garrett most likely, I would assume, brought those officers in because he's been entertaining the idea. So I would make that leap, and he led that section. He led that section of the talk, right? Mm-hmm. Policing in this country, the history of policing is toxic. It's horrible. And then police in the movement are like veterans in the movement. Veterans in the peace movement are questioned and, and asked questions, and have to respond to people's insecurities and prejudgments at all times, but getting away from my tangent, seeing the intersections right now in this movement, I've got a couple of tabs open of things that are happening right now that are so intersectional with this that I just want to bring them up. So next week, we're going to have some guests from Stop Line 3, MN 350 movement on here, talking about the pipeline, the tar sands being pumped through Minnesota. and the resistance to that. And and I have opened on this Democracy Now! Page, Leona Morgan, talking about, well, the first Native Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland, and how that movement, how that the resistance to that in the hearings is happening right now, and how she's being questioned. Deb Haaland's being questioned because of her resistance to the fossil fuel industry. I mean, and people see, like, my room is littered with all this propaganda about all this leftist media propaganda, right? Green New Deal, sustainable agriculture, indigenous sovereignty. And young people know these terms, but then we feel like we're here kind of just trying to make the mix happen, right? On my other tab, I've got the story about the Jackson mayor, the Jackson, Mississippi mayor, which is Jackson, Mississippi is the largest city in Mississippi. It is the capital of the city, and it is drinking dirty water because the water system isn't funded. So where are we at in our world? We're, you know what I'm saying? Like this, and the same things that we're doing, that we're saying we're making better outside of our country, we're doing here every day and ignoring. I'm getting
Yeah. I'm with
know,
you. I'm with you. If a biblical, to reference the Bible, Job wrote, "If all my troubles were weighed on scales, they would weigh more than the sands of the sea." So, I mean, that's what's going on. The humanity is facing extinction level events. All the species, all our ancestors on the planet, were experiencing one of the largest extinction events in the history of the planet. So it can drive you kind of crazy. And once you become active as a anti-imperialist, especially as a veteran who experienced war firsthand, experienced just how bad it can be, and how bad it probably will get in most places. Boy, it can really warp your mind. And that's why we struggle with such serious levels of like depression and anxiety in the veteran community. But, fear not, we have revolutionary optimism, which has played a huge role in my life, is just having just understanding that, like, there is no other choice. We have to continue the fight. We have to be winter soldiers, as it were, learn from our mistakes and grow. But yeah, I mean, you just talked about so many different threads. It's tough to pick one. I mean, I know in Cincinnati, I'm in Cincinnati, and so I'm right on the Ohio River, in the Ohio River Valley, or so-called Cincinnati, I should say. It is the land of the Miami and Shawnee. So I know I'm downstream from about 20 planned fracking projects right now across Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So I know that within the next few years, my risk to fracking chemicals and microplastics are going to jump through the roof. Now, we're lucky here in Ohio. I have a friend who's a hydrology major. She's a hydrology graduate. She's a master's graduate, who was telling me that in Cincinnati, we're lucky because we have a huge underwater aquifer, one of the largest in the country, and it is protected by a layer of clay. And we're extremely lucky that that layer of clay is there, because when they were building so-called Cincinnati, they didn't know that that layer of clay was there, and they were building things like the Fernald plant, which was a nuclear weapons grade uranium manufacturing facility, which is a few miles from me, and that heavily contaminated the ground all around that plant. And if that layer of clay wasn't there to separate, just by happenstance, by God himself, I guess, put that layer of clay there. And if it wasn't there, one of the largest aquifers in the world would have been contaminated with nuclear fuel. So, I mean, yeah, water rights are absolutely important. Something that we should probably be leading with in our political conversations, because it really does determine the fates of millions of human beings for eternity, for all of our following generations. But I feel like we should pull this back to Winter Soldier. What's our girl Natasha doing? I mean, Natasha, where are you? I thought you were going to be on the show with us.
She had to
You had to take a break.
she has life, we all have life things that come up
Oh, okay.
spontaneously, and I
All right.
believe she had something come up that she could not pull away from,
Okay.
which we have to respect and honor. um we are here as volunteers. We are here because we're passionate about peace. We're passionate about change and justice. And like our predecessors, our elders who have been in this fight for 50 years, I see, as Garrett said, 1971 is is 50 years ago. Uh, Thank you for the correction. We have to constantly seek, edification. We have to self edify. We have to clear our misunderstandings, and not be scared to put out those editorials, when needed. We have to be self correcting mechanisms, right? So we're here doing this fight, honoring our ancestors who fought before us, and in that sense honoring our children who have to come inherit these lands after us, trying to keep the land safe. The only way to do that is by creating these platforms. Unfortunately, we the people have to do that because we live in a society where, although many of our things are socialist, they're underfunded, and they're attacked or vilified, even though they're things that we as a society have come to love, like Social Security and Medicare. I mean Medicaid, right? I forget which one is for our elders, but it's like the way we approach things, and the way we look at things has to be shifted. So that's why we're having these conversations. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of the themes that I caught in with the Winter Soldier presentation is that there really is. I think what's happening is a good thing. What's happening is that we're moving from kind of an anti-war stance to an anti-imperialist stance.
yes.
I think that's key because we should be finding solidarity with all of the oppressed around the world. I know in the past, like I don't want to talk bad about anybody. Like we owe a lot. Generally, we owe a lot to the anti-war veterans of the past from the Vietnam era that really did some wild direct action protests. I know, like when Susan Schnall went and dropped leaflets on an aircraft carrier saying "Don't
Yes.
deploy," like that is some badass shit that I
Yeah.
can't even imagine going on today. Like,
Was it four bases?
yeah,
Was it four?
oh
Come on,
man,
yo. What? That's
yeah.
dope.
Yeah, I
That's really
mean,
dope.
yeah, she was always kind of a thought leader. I mean, she's an incredible. I mean, any revolutionary movement is usually led by women, usually led by women of color, and like she's the real deal. And like in some respects, like I can't even believe that like if I wanted to email her, I could, because it's like being able to email Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. Like, like can you even imagine like real revolutionaries that are really out there doing the work? So I
That's
certainly appreciate them.
that's what's been inspiring me and feeding me and nurturing me for these past 6 years, 2014, since I came to Veterans for Peace, going on 7 years, I guess. Um, it's and doing this work. Adrian Kinney said that doing this work is also self-care, because when you're like disillusioned, and you need to do something with your time. You need to do something with your energy, your passions, disillusionment, or you're going to go crazy. So doing this work feeds you. Doing this work feeds the soul. You know, it like, it's very nurturing to know that I'm doing something that's positively influencing my children and friends and people that I don't even know, like conversations that you get, that you get privy to because of the people that you're around, like you know, the Joe Ergo and the David Zeiger and Susan Schnall. It's really dope. And then folks are humble. Like, folks have done a whole lot, you know, like Adrian Kinney is kind of like a you know, like a Edward Snowden on a level, right? Or like you know, like the share, like people don't think about the sharing of information, what that entails, getting it out, and the stories, and people don't tell their stories. So it's really cool, like you said, to be around these folks and to get fed this good spiritual food. It is reaffirming, because it can be very tiresome to feel like, you know, what's going wrong. When you're like, I look at the pop industry, I look at the music industry, and I'm like, what's going wrong, you know? But the funding just doesn't come here. The funding is intentionally taken out of intelligent movements, and
Yeah.
it's just not, it doesn't feed the algorithm. And
Yeah. Yeah. So Jerry Steele seconded my comment. I wanted to make a point about this, that moving from you know, anti-imperialism and anti-war, like, I'd like to elaborate a little bit more about what that means to me, my understanding of it, why I feel it's so important. We've talked about it before on
yeah,
the show.
I wanted to talk about it, but I got sidetracked, as I often do.
I know. There's just so much ground to cover. You know, so anti-war, anti-imperialism, essentially, you know, what happened a lot was that, consider the Vietnam War and the veterans, what happened to them when they came back. You know, they were left, you know, the federal government left them essentially, you know, forlorn. They were alone, you know, to make their way in the world. There were some benefits, like GI benefits, but in a lot of cases, those same benefits weren't extended to people of color who had fought in the GI or fought in the Vietnam War. So that's a consistent thing. And then also there was a big consideration. I mean, there was a consistent theme within the anti-war left that came back from Vietnam, who were really just considered like, you know, what about the veterans? What about the United States? What about patriotism and about those people who served American empire, and what are we going to do for them? Which is a fair argument. But at the same time, I mean, we got to remember the people who won the Vietnam War were Vietnamese communists. They were the people who died by the millions in order to stop American empire. Like, and they were the ones who their land was just laid waste by Agent Orange. So there was something. I learned something new the other day when I was watching the conference, that there wasn't just one Agent Orange. There was something like 20 different experimental chemicals that were just poured on a country that's the size of a, you know, small new. I heard Vietnam is the size of Rhode Island. Is that
Vietnam,
I don't.
yeah, Vietnam is tiny. I don't know the math on it, but Vietnam is tiny.
Yeah. It's just this tiny little country where they dropped more bombs on Vietnam than they did during World War II. The Americans did. I mean, this country, there is just no way we could possibly fathom the kind of hardship that the average Vietnamese person experienced during that war. So yeah, so my point is, let me just draw it to a close, is that our consideration should be with the international oppressed, like the people that the American empire is crushing underfoot by any means, you know. So those are the people we should keep in consideration. We should still continue to fight for them, and make sure that we're challenging our own privilege. Me as a white person, I certainly need to keep in mind that I have privilege, that I need to do, you know, whatever I can to serve the oppressed, the international oppressed, the people of color, women, the handicapped, the elderly, understand my and that's what kind of what the anti-war versus anti-imperialism thing is that like we're keeping those things in mind, and that we're fighting for real justice, for humanity, and not just for the majority of like white people who served in like the Vietnam War or in the American military. I hope that makes sense. I feel like
I
I'm
think
kind
it
of,
makes sense.
yeah.
You're saying that you're willing to go into debt to do the work of the people, to do the for
I'm
the people,
trying to, man. I'm
work
trying to.
for the people,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I'm willing to
Um,
put myself second for sure. Like Fred Hampton said, like we all watched the Judas and the Black Messiah. That he knew that he was going to die high on the people, unconditional love for the people,
right.
and
What I'm
that's what it
saying,
is.
like
Yeah,
anti-war versus anti-imperialist. Like I'm not being snarky here. You're not joking when you say you went into debt. You took out you bought stuff on a credit card, camera equipment, but you didn't do it to you're not making videos for all the hot boy rappers in Cincinnati, right? You seem to have an ethical standard with your music creation and production that right is
yeah,
keeping you one of the people, right? And that's the thing.
yeah,
Like anti-war versus anti-imperialist. Why are you doing the work that you're doing, right?
yeah,
One of the themes, like Margaret Stevens, powerful sister. I know her. I met her at a convention. We got to hang out a bunch. Super cool, right? Love the sister. Raised a very important question. What about rock? She said, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was rock star versus it was something about the type, like how do we support the movement? Can you be a rock star in the movement, or is it about the work that you do? You know, um, and that's a really important question because we always have people saying, "How about this Stevie Wonder song to help get the people involved? How about where's Marvin Gaye right now? Where is this when you need it? Where is that when you need it?"
yeah,
And it's like the rock star. I think the rock star has a very valid place um, in the movement because I think they are. I think a lot of times the artist is inspired by peace, is inspired by the very things, like the things that the anti-imperialist and the anti-war movement is trying to attain are the things that inspire the artist. And so I think that they're the people, I think they align naturally, you
hmm
know. And if you have an artist who is naturally focused on that movement, then you have a natural alignment. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of
yeah,
like what is it, Bono, right? Is it from YouTube? Like
yeah,
nobody's gonna tell Bono he can't make a video for them. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you and I are both artists, so naturally, our conversations tend to trend towards art and music, and that's cool. I can talk about that all day. Yeah, and so I mean, you brought up Bono. I mean, today's St. Patrick's Day. He's Bono is Irish, and he wrote, some really great songs about the Irish struggle for independence. He has some, especially in the early days of U2, they had some revolutionary content and work that made a big impact, and that's great. And that reminds me of the point that art is never art for the sake of art. Art is always connected to the people who made it, to their different intersectional identities. So whether their race, their gender, and their class, especially class. That art always has class interests. That it represents the interests of the class of people who made it. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. That like,
or or in this day and age, it represents the class of people that people are aspiring to get into, because we have this, what we have now is like the idea that we can all achieve, right? Like, what is it? The American ideals, right? American exceptionalism. You can do it if the best can make it, right? So everybody's rapping about and singing about what they want and ignoring what is, and so there's a lot of menagerie, or there's a lot of facade, right? There's a whole lot of like fake jewelry and rented cars and songs about just life like that isn't the way it is, and isn't about fixing what is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a trend. Like, I'm a socialist, so I trend towards Marxist vocabulary. And I think something to be aware of is that, like, what we have under capitalism is competition. And that in competition, you have winners and losers. And so there's a designated group of people under capitalism who will lose. And they will continue to lose. And that group of people will continue to get bigger and bigger. And those people will be forced to survive by any means necessary. They'll become hustlers and drug dealers and sex workers and, whatever. That kind of covers it. But and what happens is, because those people don't have class consciousness, is that they tend to relate to the capitalists. They want the same things. They want wealth. Just like anybody does. Everybody wants wealth to a certain degree, and that's a problem.
No, this brings us to another intersection. This is really good, because I don't like to put myself in a box. I don't like to say I'm a socialist, or I'm a Marxist, or I'm whatever. I'm a capitalist. It brings us to this point where statistics say things are getting better. And statistically, there's less violence, and there's less crime, and there's less this. But then numerically, there's a higher prison population than ever in world history. And we're the country at the center point of that, right? Numerically, there's more bombs being dropped on countries than ever in the history of the world. And yet we're at a point where we're saying there's less violence and less. So how does that happen, right? Is that because the population is so big? Right? It's happening because the population is just so big. It's grown so big because of oil, because of unsustainable oil, that even though there's more bombs being dropped and there's all these wicked things happening, there's so many more people that right? Statistically, you can say, oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. But yet the prison population is increasing.
That's true.
The levels of homeless people are increasing. Hungry children, hungry families, all these numbers are increasing, right?
Well, certainly the level of state violence is also increasing.
What do you mean the level of state violence? The level of
so like you said, like the prison industrial complex, the police state, and the American empire. Right. The violence enforced on Central South America, on the entire world, 800 military bases or more. Right. Like this state violence is just growing and growing and growing. And meanwhile, here in the imperial core, we benefit from that. And so we tend to, like Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book, like I think it's like The Better Angels of Our Nature or something like that, something about angels, where he makes the case that that generally things are getting better in the world. But I think that he's a little delusioned, because as someone who benefits from the wealth of empire here in America, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, and the Midwest, like poor people have refrigerators, poor people have TVs. So it's easy to make the case that things are getting better. But also, if the American prison industrial complex, if the population of the American prison industrial complex, it is about the same size as the 15 smallest states. Mm-hmm. Like, it is an outrageous number of people. We are the prison house of nations, and so, so state violence is on the rise, and we have to combat that. We have to make the connection between the violence that the U.S. enforces overseas, whether it's Bolivia, where Elon Musk famously said, we will coup whoever we want, or whether it's in Arizona and they're building walls and child detention concentration camps, that all these things are connected. And that's kind of our job. That's my job. That's my mission, is to spread awareness and education that these things are all connected. Yeah.
Thank you for choosing to do it here with us every week, Mike. I appreciate you giving your time. I appreciate Natasha giving time. You know, and I appreciate being given this platform to make this space available for folks each week. Because it is literally food for the soul. When we have a good show and we have a chat room full of comments and people have shared it and responded on how they've enjoyed it, it's food, you know.
Right.
Because it's a very harrowing experience for people who don't realize it, to give yourself to something that you think is lofty and good, become disillusioned about the toxicity, the oppression, the patriarchy you're taking a part in, the sexism, the racism, the system of, you know, just downpression that you're taking part in, to come home and people not ask you about it and thank you for something that you thought you were going to do, can be very, very daunting and very isolating. You know, it's why we have so many of our brothers and sisters taking their lives. You know, I'm going to put the banner up for the GI Rights Hotline. I'm going to put the number up.
Yeah. If there's go ahead.
No, it's just it's nefarious. Like, you know, the idea, like, imperialism is a nefarious, wicked beast, and the way it's entrenched itself throughout our society, where the insurrectionists of January 6th are like not self-reflective here 3 months later and not held to account properly, and our country seems to be spiraling further down a rabbit hole, while states are taking off masks, and probably people are going to come together again and hang out, and there's new variants all over the country. So people are ignoring science. They're not learning from things that we just saw, and it's a little dismaying.
Yeah, there's never been an empire that hasn't collapsed.
Right.
So here we are. I mean, people who don't understand that, I mean, it's an objective fact. Every empire to ever exist is gone now.
70 years
the Romans are gone. The British Empire is gone. The Belgian Empire in the Congo and across Africa is gone. You know, all these, and so here we are, Americans.
And I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to thread. Empires last for shorter and shorter lengths of time. Mm-hmm. So if you just do a little bit of historical research, we're at 70 years. Britain made it to what, 150?
Something like that, yeah.
The Ottoman Empire, which was before Britain, lasted a little bit longer than them. Just do a little bit of historical research on that. Every empire falls, and they always fall worse than the last. Yeah,
and here we are. The contradictions are heightened, and we're extremely prolific. You know, here we are. As high as the higher we are, the higher we fall.
I think we're overextended. Our credit, we have too many Americans have taken out too much personal debt. The country as a whole has taken out too much debt to support its bloated.
Yeah, it's an entirely debt-based economy.
The corporations are based in debt. The small business owners are. It's like it's a debt-based economy, and at some point the roosters have to come home to roost. So. Right. You know, we got to take the medicine, the Ipecac. What is it? Ipecac, or what's the other one? Fish.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
I don't know, but it sounds serious.
You got to throw it up. You got to get rid of stuff. If it doesn't serve you, get rid of it. And so there's some things that don't serve us. You know, I changed my background, but defund the police. The police don't serve us. You know, we have the highest prison population in the world. We also have the highest incidences of crime in the world. We have higher percentages of violence here than Angola, than places in war. We have more. So
Yeah.
the things that don't serve us, we have to get rid of. Our military is bloated and expensive. The highest consumer of fossil fuels on the planet. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve the planet. We need to get rid of it. We need to reimagine it. You know, we're going to keep having these conversations if we're not willing to have new conversations about what we need to imagine. We need to imagine a new world, or we're going to keep having these conversations. Why are things happening? Because war is still being funded by our taxes.
Hell yeah, man. That reminds me. I had this little thing. I don't know if anybody's ever read this book called The Face of Imperialism by Michael Parenti. This is
I like Michael Parenti, but I haven't read it.
Man, Michael Parenti speaks in really plain terms. It's easy to understand. And hopefully maybe there's one kid out there that's thinking about joining the military. I'd like him to hear this. All right. So the imperialists are among the socioeconomic and political elites who are the keepers of the dominant paradigm. The dominant paradigm is the prevailing ideology or mode of thought that purports to explain how and why society functions as it does. The purveyors of the dominant paradigm in the United States and the Western world in general most certainly believe in it. That ideology they propagate defines their world for them. It is the magic alchemy that lends virtue to their class supremacy, assuring them of their indispensable worth to society. The dominant paradigm tells them that all their wrongfully acquired gains and privileges are rightfully theirs. Along with one of their 18th century progenitors, Alexander Hamilton, the corporate economic elites believe that the country should be run by the rich and the well-born. They deeply feel they are deserving of their station in life. They believe the United States should lead the world and they should lead the United States. They are convinced that the poor are the authors of their own poverty and that the working class consists of a troublesome lot who need to be reined in along with the middle class, both of whom are admonished to ratchet down their standard of living so that those at the very top can get at an ever larger portion of the pie and an ever firmer grip on the servings.
This speaks. We should just end right there. I mean, yeah, that is. Can Africa have her stolen monuments back? You know what I'm saying? Can the continent get back all the obelisks around the world? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's one in New York that needs to go back. Actually.
Yeah, and can we stop the ignorant lie about it needs to be preserved, as if the thief is the only one capable of taking care of the historical artifacts. Come on, yeah. Thank you.
Word. Yeah, I love the conversation on Africa. I mean, I've recently made some friends from Africa who are there now, and I'm getting a lot of like very practical and like tactical knowledge on what's going on in Africa, and that's just an incredible subject. I hope to.
Africa was intentionally plundered, man. People don't know the history. Like Mansa Musa, he traveled across the continent in this procession that was seen by early travelers, and his wealth was reported back to Europe, and that was the reason that the plundering began. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like straight up jealousy and greed. The same reason the plundering began in the Americas, because rumors of the gold had been reported, and so the people had to be dehumanized. The people had to be othered. You know, the same way people are othered today, the same way people were othered to make prohibition possible, drug criminalization, all of it. The reason the prison population is so big is because people keep getting othered.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
and yeah, Africa really is the keystone in so many ways, because if you think about, World War One, essentially what it was is a land race by imperialist powers
you know,
to go out and steal land and resources, mostly from Africa. I
this
mean,
is
that's
behold
really what
the
it was.
Lord.
There's
Yeah.
they're just empires contradicting each other and trying to wage genocide on Africa. So
Right.
I mean, there's really not a whole lot to be proud of there, like, and even World War II, you could say the same thing. The Nazis
It's
went and the Italians, I guess one of the first things they did is when they invaded North Africa in order to steal their resources, and that's kind of what, like, in a way, like World War One never ended. It's
World War
always
One.
been this. It's always been these clash of empires racing for land.
Yeah.
You know.
World War II helped consolidate the Australia and the Pacific, and all the stuff that hadn't already been colonized to a suitable extent. And then today you still have the outliers of what China and Russia, and that's why the connections are made. That's why the any indigenous people or black revolutionaries are linked with those ideas of communism and socialism, because that's the last piece in the puzzle in their minds, right? In the imperial minds, that's the last piece, is like the connection to the outside world, right? And so
the Pan-African movement, is
right.
certainly informed by those ideas. Right.
Yeah, and vilifying people, but people already have the ideas. It's not even that they were influenced by them, like by outside ideas. The ideas are innate.
That's true.
The ideas are of the people. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so the connection being made, that's the othering. That's like you're lessening the power of the Nat Turner. You know what I'm saying? You're lessening the power by saying somebody else gave it to them. Somebody else gave them that knowledge. No.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, yeah.
Boy, we went hard for an hour.
I mean, this is kind of like our
this is what we do on Sundays
sessions anyway.
Yeah.
So it was a little more focused. We kind of went off on a couple of tangents, but
yeah, we kept going, and we covered a lot of topics. But I mean, it all stems from, and it all began with, this episode started with the idea of the Winter Soldier Conference, which we highly recommend everyone go check out. I have the link right here, the YouTube link. I'm going to put it in the comments.
I want to let everybody know Natasha is fine. Her computer crashed, and so she'll join us. She'll be with us next week. Yeah.
Okay. I should have put a little Winter Soldier Conference 2021.
See you, Jerry. Yep.
Yeah. We want everybody to
passing more stringent voting laws that all lead in the same direction. I mean, look at right now the Senate unwilling to give up the filibuster, when it's like the minority whip, right? And like the name of it, the majority of the minority whip, like we know what that name is.
Yeah, so, exactly. Like, the crackers.
Yeah, you're unwilling to give up the filibuster. The thing that allows you to stop progress. You're unwilling to give up the outdated law that allows you to impede progress. Yeah, surprise.
Yeah, anything to stop democracy in the United States.
Yeah.
I
say all power to the people. I got these are mortality beads. I put these up here specifically for this show today, because these are Tibetan and these are real. These are yak bone. I got these at a store in New York, and I got the beads in Chinatown, and I made the necklace myself. And it's the mortality beads remind us that our time here on Earth is not permanent. We are here for a limited amount of time, and you have to do something special with your life. You are here for a purpose. You have to fulfill your purpose, find your purpose, and manifest it in the world to make the world a better place. So that's at least my purpose is making the world a better place through music and the art, and helping other people find their purpose. So
Yes, yes, definitely. We all need to connect with our humanity and our spirituality.
thank you for tuning in with us. Share this conversation, grow this conversation week after week. We'll be here next week. Next Thursday, so next Wednesday is the 24th, and then next Thursday I have eye surgery, y'all. So I won't be here the following I won't be here in April, basically. But next Thursday I'm getting the eye surgery, and then for a week I won't see, and then for a few weeks I'll be healing, and I'll see y'all in May. So I hope my Mike and Natasha, my partners, keep it safe.
We'll try not to fail you.
Keep it safe and keep it lively. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week, and then again in 5 weeks. All right.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll see everyone next week. Thank you for watching, and we'll stay in touch.
Peace, y'all.
All power to the people.